Peace. Welcome back to the Voices of Reason show. I'm your host, Skilo Slim, and today we got a very special guest in the building. I'm gonna toss it to him so he can introduce himself. Hello.
Hey.
How you doing?
Nice to see you, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Eli R RIgatuso, and I am, how should I introduce myself? Well, first of all, I'm a native Nebraskan, so I was born and raised here in Omaha.
Gotta love
Pretty
that.
proud of that. I tried to leave once.
Yeah.
For a short period of time, and then I got sucked back into it.
That's what happens.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to make a difference in Omaha and in Nebraska itself. You know, we are a pretty red state.
Definitely.
And a lot of the things that I advocate for and the things that I believe in are, you know, there's a lot of opportunity to actually make a difference in those areas.
Right.
And you know, I appreciate you asking me to be on your show. I'm not sure why you asked me to be on your show, but I'll just talk about some of the stuff that I'm doing, like, in my life. How's that sound?
That's the reason for the work that you do.
Yeah, right on. Okay. So basically, I just recently started hosting some workshops. So one of my areas of interest, which actually connects to one of my identities, because I'm a transgender man, I was actually born and assigned female by this random doctor by the name of Dr. Doolittle in 1965 at Bergen Mercy Hospital.
Serious? That's really the name?
Yeah, that was really his name.
Wow.
And I always say, I am not an animal. Most people don't understand the Dr. Doolittle reference, especially the young ones, but I figured you would get it.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I remember both
right?
movies.
Right? Okay, so, oh yeah, but then I forgot they remade it.
Yeah, with Eddie Murphy.
Yes. I forget about that version. Okay, so, because I'm even older than that. But, you know, I've always been an outspoken advocate for the LGBTQ plus community because at a very young age, I realized, I actually knew that I was a boy all along, but being born in 1965, when I started to have language around just telling my parents who I was, you know, I used to tell them, I used to say, no, I'm a boy, and my mom used to say, no, actually you're not, because there wasn't really a lot of knowledge about what it is to be transgender, and there are a lot of myths and misunderstandings around what it is to have a varying gender identity, right? There's a lot to learn, and I just noticed that, you know, so I lived the first 50 years of my life as a person who was born assigned female and who was also attracted to people of feminine persuasion. Is how I now say this, because I do have romantic attraction to folks who do present more femininely. I've never been attracted to a man, but I've also never found them disgusting or gross. Like, I just have never had a romantic attraction to a man.
Right.
But I can look at men and go, ooh, hey, he is good looking, he is fine, you know, like, admire the, you know, great cheeks and all these things. And people used to have, again, myth of, oh, then something must have happened to you that was really tragic when you were younger.
Yeah, I hear that.
And that's why you're attracted to people of the same sex, because that's how it was at the time. And I always laughed about that, because I was like, no, I don't hate men. Like, no, that's not even part of it. And it wasn't until I finally realized, like, I had taken this concept of my being a boy, because I was born in 1965, right? And not in a generation where people were talking about this.
Right.
It was out there. People knew about transgender people, but it wasn't a common thing, especially here in the Midwest.
Right.
So I took this concept and I planted it into my unconscious mind. Now, there were a lot of things that happened in my life that now, when I finally made that conscious to myself again, that I realized, like, oh, well, gosh, that makes an awful lot of sense about me now, right? No wonder I don't hate men, because I am one. Right? And so it's like, I have allowed myself to pretty much transition publicly, because I've always been a public persona in this area. You know, being born here and raised here, I know a lot of people. I have a great deal of friends. Most of the people that I'm friends with on my Facebook page are people that I actually know in real life.
Right, I can relate.
You know? And there's a lot of people that I don't know, and there are people that I allow to creep on my page because I feel like I've always been an educator in that regard. You know, I want the legacy of the LGBTQ plus folks who have been doing a lot of the groundwork here in Omaha to be known.
Right.
And it's something that just hasn't been known. So I started this website and podcast called Speaking of Happy, and it was basically my intention at the time, because I started this back in like 2008, 2009. My intention at the time was to give myself a space to just blog and just say whatever the heck I wanted, and not care what anybody thought, right? Just
we all
free
need that.
space. Yeah, absolutely. It's so imperative. And you know, the other thing was to kind of take and start to educate folks about what is available in this area. You know, some of the wonderful organizations that provide support to LGBTQ plus folks. And then also, like, I say that initialism as though everybody knows what it means. And what I find is most people don't.
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
Right. There's actually even folks within the community who don't understand all of the initialism. And the reason why I call it an initialism is because it is not an acronym.
Okay.
And there's a confusion there sometimes with that. An initialism basically just takes the first letter of each word.
Right.
Right? So LGBTQ, and I always say plus because there are a number of letters after that, but it's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, okay? And then there's the Q for queer and sometimes questioning. There is the I is known as intersex, so the reference for the I is intersex, because there are folks who are born with what they term ambiguous genitalia. So it isn't clear whether or not they were, the message from their brain that was sent to their body was, hey, you're male, or hey, you're female.
Right.
And we'll get a little more to that in a second because we don't want to confuse transgender and asexual either, or intersex either. And then A is for asexual.
Okay.
Or agender. There are folks who actually feel as though they don't have a gender because they don't fit in either of those two boxes.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So this is a really complex topic because one of the things that, and there's a lot of debate around the initialism because people are like, but wait a minute, so transgender is more having to do with your gender and less having to do with your sexuality. And I say, well, in many cases, yes, because there are plenty of transgender people who consider themselves heterosexual, okay?
Right.
So a trans woman is a woman. And if she's attracted to men, she may consider herself straight.
Right.
Right? And there are all kinds of varying ways to explain that. So one of the things that I realized back in 08, 09 was, like, everybody gets so caught up in the terminology and they get heavy and it weighs everybody down, and it's like, you know, it's like we've taken the word gay and we've like used it as a battering post.
Like a catch-all.
Well, a catch-all and to beat people up with. I mean, there's all this stuff in politics even.
Right.
You know, I mean, you have all these people in political office who are trying to claim that we've got an agenda.
Right.
Right?
That's what you see a lot.
Right. And it's so funny because like what you're seeing happen in history now is the actual agenda of the GOP. And their agenda was to actually forward the white movement.
Right.
They will never admit it, but you can see it. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so like the reason why I bring a lot of these things up is because the intersections of all of those things, of our race and our gender and our sexuality and our sexual orientation and our religious beliefs and our spirituality, all of those things are so important to who we are as people.
Right.
And so what I did when I started speaking of happy was I wanted to put the word happy back into the word gay.
Right.
Because when you look it up in the dictionary, that's one of the definitions.
Yeah.
Gay means to be happy.
Definitely.
Right?
Right.
And so like for me, it's like the approach of, I want to have this open dialogue and these open conversations with folks so that we can actually all start to understand that there's so much more depth to us. I mean, I can look at you and make an awful lot of assumptions.
Right.
I can allow any biases or stereotypes that I might still possess to prevent me from getting to know you. Or I can do what I do as a Native American human being, look into your eyes and see that there is so much depth. Your eyes are warm. Your eyes are inviting. And I want to teach people how to do that. I want to teach people how to see people and then be able to ask questions to learn more about who they are and what's important to them, right?
Right, because that's what matters.
Right. So, hey, speaking of happy, was pretty much born.
Right.
And I started out, like I said, by covering all of the LGBTQIA plus initialism, and I was reaching out to different local organizations that provide support, like PFLAG Omaha is one. Proud Horizons is out there, GLSEN is out there.
Yeah.
You know, all these organizations, because what was happening when I hit, just before I turned 50, was when I finally allowed myself to consciously grasp the fact that I was transgender. And I was no longer ashamed or embarrassed of that fact. And I kind of busted off the closet door. Scared some people, because I was like, hey, I'm here, right? It confused some folks. I mean, I'll be honest, some of the good friends that I have who are lesbian friends who I've known for many, many years were like, wait a minute, so you're transgender? I mean, does that mean that you're now attracted to men? Because you say you're gay. And I'm like, well, I understand where you went with all of that, but no.
So there's like confusion.
Sex and gender are separate.
Right.
Right?
So you experience confusion even inside of the community.
Oh, exactly. Exactly, because there were folks who, if you look at the initialism historically, over time, there has been times like you'll find in certain writing, the G will come first. You'll find in some writing that it's LG and no other letters show up. Or it's referred to as lesbian and gay, or gay and lesbian.
Right.
Now, I fault partially the media for that. Instead of taking an opportunity to include all of those things and actually just spelling it out, they just collapsed it down into two things and then created this mass confusion. Because then when you start talking about LGBTQ+, people are going,
Whoa, wait.
right. But there's all this like backing up and going, okay, so why did this happen with the initialism? Well, some people believe that politically adding all those letters muddied the waters and made it too confusing for people when we were trying to advocate for our rights. So people would just drop those off. Part of it was laziness.
Right.
Like I said, it takes a lot more to actually approach you, sit down with you, have a conversation with you, and ask you questions, and then genuinely listen and want to learn.
Definitely.
And find out who you are, right?
That involves being uncomfortable.
Right.
And people don't, a lot of people, they're like, never mind.
And there's those people who, like, I'm sure approach you, and they're like, oh, gosh, I mean, yeah, I do have questions, but, like, I'm afraid, and, like, I don't want you to hurt me.
Yeah.
And then you're going, okay, well,
Like,
that's a
what?
bias and a stereotype, because I'm just a big old cuddly teddy bear,
Yeah, like,
right?
Yeah, like, what's the problem? Yeah.
Right, but
I
it's
know
the
what you
bias and stereotype of what the world has said about black men who are bigger like you,
Right.
right?
Right.
Well, I get the same thing when people want to ask me questions about my being transgender, because what's really interesting is the conversation always collapses to one thing.
Right.
And can you guess what that one thing is?
What?
They always want to know about my genitals,
I can see that.
right? And I kind of chuckle about it, and I don't make anybody wrong about it. There are some trans folks who get really offended by that conversation and that question.
And that's understandable.
Right, because it's a very personal thing.
Right. Exactly.
I myself have kind of gone with it like this. Like if somebody asks me, I'll be like, well, so are you interested in me sexually? Because if you are, we can have a really great conversation.
Yeah.
If you're not, it's actually not any of your business.
Exactly.
But I also go as far to say as, like, look, gender is actually on a spectrum. You have female, you have male, right? And then there's all these things in between. There's actually more than 50 genders on record. And most people, after they graduate from college and they've put their time in, don't go back to learn more.
Right.
Kind of a fault of our society, because we should be going back and wanting to learn more and having a desire to learn more and to gain a better understanding and to be a better human, I think, right?
Definitely. Definitely.
So gender's on its own spectrum. Sexuality is actually on its own spectrum. Gender identity has its own spectrum. Gender expression has its own spectrum, right?
Right.
And we have these beliefs about certain things too. Like, nobody said that this is a man's finger because it's on a man's body, right? I don't go, oh, hey, look at your man nose,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
But we've collapsed the genitals into that category. You know, men have breasts, but we don't sensationalize them the way that we do women's breasts.
Yeah, it's like separate.
And then we have to hide women's breasts because God forbid they just hang those out there, which is ridiculous because it's just an anatomy. It's just a physical part of someone's body. Some men actually have man boobs.
Yeah.
And they proudly flaunt them at the swimming pools in the summer, right? And nobody says, please cover that up, right?
Right.
So I'm kind of the advocate of let women be free. This is just ridiculous. But anyway, or let people who have breasts who want to flaunt them be free to do so. Because there are actually some men who have breasts and are proud of their breasts.
Yeah, I've seen it before.
Yeah, see? So it's like I want people to have these conversations.
Me too. That's my main thing.
Yeah, because there's nothing wrong with having those conversations. But we as a society have taken some of these things, we balled them all up and we set them over here and said, don't talk about it. You go to church, we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Abstinence. That's what.
Yeah, that's it. Wait till you're married.
Let's talk about sex. Abstinence.
Right.
Right? If we were having more robust conversations around sex and sexuality, you know, there's a lot of people who actually would learn how to protect themselves, who would learn how to have safe sex, who would learn where they could go and what they need so that they can actually prevent themselves from becoming pregnant. You know, we shouldn't be embarrassed by any of these conversations, right?
Right, definitely.
I mean, that's why we make up nicknames for certain body parts, because people get uncomfortable. They're like, oh, no, no, no. Like, we start it when we're really young.
Yeah, definitely.
See? So again, it all circles back around to speaking of happy, which is, let's have these conversations. Let's be happy about having these conversations. Let's be curious and want to learn more about who people really are. Because I can't get to know you by asking your best friend or your significant other.
Right.
Now, I might learn some really great things about you, but I'm not going to really get to know you unless I ask you.
Yeah, that's the key. We have to communicate. Like that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And actually be genuinely curious.
Right.
You know, I mean, when people approach me with questions, and that was one of the reasons why I started the workshops, because I know people have the questions, and I want them to have answers that are appropriate to the topic.
Right.
And some of those answers can be varying. I am one trans person, just like you are one black man, right? I could ask you about what your experience is like, and there are a lot of common threads from one black man to the next black man to the next black man. But everyone has a different concept of that.
Right.
You know, and I mean, hate to bring up this topic because it's always so touchy, but like, I get it, the N-word is off limits, right? Within your culture, however, and people that you hang with, there are people who will use that word, but there are some folks, some black men, who are like, nope.
Offended, yeah. I've seen fights start between, you know, two black men, and if you call him that, he's going to be upset.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So like you said, that's the important part, is to communicate, to get to know the person individually.
Yeah.
It's like
and
real easy to
understand
group.
theirs. Yes.
Exactly.
Understand their personal experience.
Right.
We can't group. You know, that's why we start, that's why when you post something that's really, like, you know, you're on Facebook and you're should I post this article or not? I know it's going to start a frenzy on my page, and then you decide, I'm going to do it. So you do it, and boom, man, the words are flying, it's going back and forth, and there's all this stuff, and I actually call them farguments. They're Facebook arguments that ensue, right?
Definitely.
And all of that I see is centered around a lack of understanding, but also someone will learn something, but then they get so stuck on that one concept that they're willing to fight someone to like a duel to the unfriend and block death.
Right.
Because they want to stand so firm in their belief instead of going, hey, maybe what I'm seeing here and saying here isn't really completely accurate.
Right. And that's like one of the reasons I wanted you to come, to help break through that part. Because it's like, I see like to me it's like two sides that I see. And it's like one part of that is like completely against it, against anything that's not traditional. Like, they don't want to hear it, they don't care. And then it's people who, like, they're curious, but it's like, I don't want to get in trouble. You know, like I don't want to say the wrong thing and come across wrong, so it's easier to just ignore. You know, and I think if we start that conversation, then it's like a person will know, like, what do I say? What, you know, like you're talking about the initials. When are those appropriate? Like, when, you know what I mean?
Well, in my personal opinion, the initialism is always appropriate, and if you don't want to say every single letter saying LGBTQ+, you know, because each one of those identities is actually important to someone.
Right.
Each one of those sexual orientations is important to someone. You know, a lot of times you hear people talking about transgender people and you don't hear them talking about people who actually identify as non-binary. You know, and those are folks who actually believe both and. Like, they believe that they possess both male and female parts of themselves. And actually, I'm gonna throw something out there for your audience.
Yeah, feel free.
I honestly believe that we all do. And because of the way that the way that the world is socialized, the way that people are socialized, we have really bought into this gender binary as being real, but it's actually a social construct. And we've all been brainwashed into believing certain things. Like, this shirt on you is a male shirt, but we could take this same shirt and put it on a woman, and all of a sudden now that's a feminine shirt. But why is that? Why does it matter? Why can't we get rid of those labels on things, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And so it's like busting that up. And so, you know, over this past 3 years, so I came out as transgender, and then I have publicly allowed people to see my transition on social media, and I've done that on purpose, and I've actually, you know, had some tough times with that, and I've had some really great times with that. Because there have been people who are like, well, why do you need to share your story? And who do you think you are? And there's plenty of other people out there who have shared theirs, and da-da-da-da-da. And I've allowed that sometimes to silence my voice. And I just recently, I'll just give this last little piece. I just recently did a photo shoot with a friend. And basically what I decided to do, he does these smoke photo shoots, where there are these little like capsules, and you pull this thing and the smoke comes out. And I wanted one that was pink and light blue, because those are parts of the colors of the trans flag.
Right.
Well, I'm also Native American, and I identify as two-spirited. And you're gonna have me back on the show so I can talk more about that.
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of struggles with my Native identity as well, because I have lighter skin right now, but you put me out in the sun in the summer for, you know, a couple days, and I'm 3 shades darker. And colorism is a thing.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
But it also affects so many other folks, right? You know, we have mixed folks who they may have darker skin, and so they're treated in the same manner that a dark-skinned black man would be treated. Right. You would expect it. It happens. You can just see it happen. So for myself, you know, being raised as a Native American in an all-white Catholic grade school, I stuck out like a sore thumb. And so I'd suffered some discrimination amongst my peers then. And, you know, it's like, I needed to find a place where I could actually learn to embrace all of me.
Right.
And Speaking of Happy has actually been that for me. And bringing people in and doing some of the photo shoots and some of the videos and things that I've done have helped me. Creating these workshops. I have one coming up in January, the 26th of January. If you look me up on Facebook, just type in Speaking of Happy. You can find me and click on events, and you can sign up for the event. It's a half-hour workshop, $75. But I will answer your questions about what it is to be transgender, non-binary, or gender non-conforming.
Right.
And I mean, I have a lot to say, as I have easily filled up your 24 minutes of time.
But
it's
like never enough time. Though.
Right?
It's never enough time.
Yeah.
Because it's like these are conversations we need to have, and it's been a while like that we needed to have them. So
absolutely.
If you want to let people know like where they can get in touch with you and how they can get in touch with you, I know
Yeah,
you kind of touched on it.
Best place is you can go to my my website, www.speakingofhappy.com. You can go to Facebook and just type in Speaking of Happy. You can look me up directly. It's Eli RIgatuso, RIgatuso. I typically will accept a friend request from just about anyone, but I always like the person who adds the private message that tells me how you heard of me. because I like to kind of keep track of some of those things as well.
Yeah,
But I'd love to come back and talk more.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have you back.
Okay.
And I just want to commend you too, because it's a courageous thing that you do.
Thank
you. You know,
you.
you don't
Thank
have to
you.
make your story public, and that takes a lot of heart to do. You know, so.
Well, and I understand fully now why some trans folks choose to actually uproot their lives entirely and move and transition elsewhere where they can actually, you know, fit into whatever that gender is. But like for myself, having transitioned so late in life, there are some things that my body has done as it has grown and developed that are things that just I can't change no matter how much tea I'm on or no matter what I do.
Right.
You know, I mean, I have facial hair now, but I still get misgendered quite frequently out in public. I still get misgendered when I go and meet new people, even if I tell them what my pronouns are. But I think it's because, like I said, I'm two-spirited. I have both masculine and feminine, possess both of those things within me, and some of the manners in the way that I carry myself and in the way that I speak definitely comes across as more maternal than paternal.
Right.
But again, I feel like if we all learned how to embrace all of those things and both of those sides of ourselves, we'd have a much happier world.
Definitely, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that, and that's definitely something that we want to push forward towards, because, I mean, it's the 21st century. Like, no one should have to fight for human rights.
Right.
Like, that's ridiculous. So it's like,
I know this should just be a given.
it should be a given. Like, whether you agree or not, it doesn't matter. Everyone deserves to be treated
Yeah.
like with dignity and respect. Like,
Absolutely.
that's just what it is. So, like I said, it's never enough time, but we're gonna have to continue this conversation definitely. I want to thank y'all for tuning in with us, and we'll see you again next time. Peace.
Girl, it's been good spending my time with you. You brought me so much joy. I'm so happy we made it this far, 'cause you're what my heart has been waiting for. Through every season, your love has always been there for me. And girl, that's the reason with you, baby, is where I want to be. Spending Christmas with you. I want to spend my Christmas with you, baby. Christmas with you. I want to spend my Christmas with you, yeah. Let's take a moment, love, and talk real talk, yeah. I've got this vision of you and I. You know how many girls to walk love's walk. Want you forever here by my side. And I found my soulmate, and not only see me here, just us two. So I'm asking you, lady, can I spend my whole life with you? My baby, my baby. And I wanna spend the rest of my life with my boo. Every Christmas, me and you. Oh, girl, Christmas with you. Just as two. So on bended knee, love, I offer you my hand and this ring. Ring, 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 ring. Will you journey with me? Be my gift, lady. ways. No, no.